The 70s and 80s were loaded with outer space horror movies. Everything from Alien to Saturn III to Night Flyers to Galaxy of Terror. With the public growing weary, studios began looking into alternative themes and locations for something like this. A place just as dark and foreboding as space, only on planet Earth, under the ocean. Hollywood loves trends, so multiple undersea films were greenlit at the same time across multiple studios. There was the James Cameron-helmed big-budget The Abyss, the lower-budget Endless Descent, the even lower-budget Lords of the Deep, as well as the medium-budget Deep Star 6, and this week's movie, Leviathan. Leviathan was greenlit with a $20 million budget and was to be directed by George P. Cosmatos. Cosmatos had previously directed Rambo: First Blood Part 2 and Cobra. Although there was a rumor that Cosmatos actually ghost-directed Cobra, while Stallone was the real director. He also directed the evil rat movie of unknown origin with Peter Weller. He liked him so much, he brought him back for Leviathan. Legendary effects master Stan Winston was contacted to do the effects for both Leviathan and Deep Star 6. After looking over the potential for each film, Winston's group opted to go with Leviathan. Around that time, Winston got a call directly from James Cameron. They had previously worked together on The Terminator and Aliens, and Cameron was hoping to bring his expertise in on The Abyss, which was his most ambitious film to date. Even though Leviathan was not as high profile as The Abyss, something in it intrigued Winston, and he declined Cameron's offer. The cast of the film was impressive. They already had Peter Weller, but now they also had Richard Crenna, Amanda Pays, Daniel Stern, Ernie Hudson, Michael Carmine, Lisa Elbacher, Hector Elizondo, and Meg Foster. With Hudson, the director called him personally to offer him the job. He was already a fan of his work, so he didn't even have him into audition. With the cast in place, pre-production was well underway. Winston's team was working on designing the monster for the film, while another team was designing the dive suits. They took tons of pictures of marine life and photos from medical reference books to create a beast with human body parts that meshed into the elements of deep-sea creatures. They came up with roughly 50 to 60 designs, and the director liked elements of all of them. They started combining elements to make this bizarre human-monster amalgamation. The team was trying to create a monster that was biologically plausible, something that was an anomaly, but was still within the realm of reality. The director didn't want real, he wanted the freak show. So the team took all of his notes and made a beast of scales, skin, teeth, as well as faces and limbs from the crew members it absorbed.
What isn't in this creature? It's all there. Everything. It's like we took everything and just went, okay, George.
With the group designing the monster, they couldn't help but notice parallels between it and the creatures Rob Bottin designed in John Carpenter's The Thing. They did their best to alter their designs to not steal anything from Bottin's creations. After 4 months of prep in LA, they had to move everything to Cinecittà Studios in Rome. Cinecittà was a famous Italian studio where they filmed, among other things, Terry Gilliam's Baron von Munchausen. They took over the enormous Stage 5, which was 130 feet by 270 feet, and built the undersea base. The wreck of the Leviathan alone was 80 feet long by 40 feet high. Back in Winston's workshop, they were running out of time and almost over budget on the monster. During this time, it became apparent the director was unhappy with the dive suits the other team was building. Winston offered to take on the design of the suits in exchange for more money and time. The team was frustrated with this, because while it did give them more of what they needed, it also doubled the workload. Plus, the money and time they were given wasn't nearly enough to cover what they needed. Still, they forged ahead and somehow made it work. The movie had a lot going for it. On top of the great cast and great effects team, they had the award-winning director of photography, Alex Thompson, and a score written by the brilliant composer Jerry Goldsmith. With the monster built, the dive suits made, and all the sets in place, they began shooting. Filming underwater would have been too difficult, so they decided to shoot in a style that's called dry for wet. This was a technique used in films like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and Clash of the Titans, although for those it was usually just brief scenes, or just shots from a portcullis. What they needed to do for Leviathan was much more elaborate. With the proper lighting and a blue tint, it looked close, but not enough. They need to have something appear as if it was floating around them. The crew cut up feathers into tiny bits and blew them around with fans, but the movement was all wrong. After trying many different materials, they ended up with candelati, a material that's usually used for snow. They then heated up some vegetable oil to produce smoke, giving it an even more authentic look. While filming, they undercranked the camera, which made the movements very heavy and slow. Since the undercranking of the camera made everything appear to be moving more slowly, this was great for creating the illusion of being underwater, but not so much for dialogue. To fix this, they built breather devices that would conceal the actors' mouths just enough so they could film the scenes and then add the dialogue in post. Filming in the dive suits was proving to be a chore. It took a long time to get in and out of them, so once they were in, they had to stay in. The suits were hot and not very well ventilated, so the crew blew cold air into them in between takes. Even still, some of the actors and stunt people passed out from the heat. When lunch rolled around, they didn't have any control over their hands, so the crew had to spoon feed them their food. Each of the suits weighed over 100 pounds, which made movement difficult. Some of the stunt people even fell and injured themselves in the suits. The boots in the dive suits had little air bladders underneath of them that would blow out the sand when they walked, giving the movement an even more realistic effect. The director showed the scenes to some underwater experts, and they said everything looked real. While directing, Cosmatos ruled with an iron fist. It was clear from day one that he was going to make the movie that he wanted to make. If the producers gave feedback, he ignored it and plowed ahead. The actors called him a megalomaniacal director. When he was shooting, he was king. While it's admirable to hear about a director that refused to alter his vision, this created problems on the set. Early in the shoot, Cosmatos was complaining about the look of the dive suits. Winston pulled him aside and offset, and the two had a shouting match. The crew said it was awkward, kind of like watching your parents fight. The director also butted heads with the actors over too many takes for some scenes, and Ernie Hudson argued over the pointless death of his character. Despite the disagreements, they were professionals and forged ahead with the filming. Hector Elizondo almost died at one point. He was in his dive suit, hooked into the device that would lower him into the water. One of the crew hit the wrong button, and the device started to crush the suit, with Elizondo inside. They managed to stop it in time, but it did some damage to the suit. In order to get some of the scenes that were really underwater, the crew had to get certified as divers. So they were working on the film during the day, and then had to go to school to get their dive certificates at night. As things went on, they developed a sense of family. The actors became friends with each other and the crew. The director, not so much. In one scene, Sixpack tells to Jesus about a diver that was crushed in his dive suit by the water pressure.
One tiny little hole in the fucking toe of his suit, man.
No bigger than your dick.
Yeah, boy, the ocean came in, the pressure just crammed his whole body up into his helmet.
This was an old diver's tale that Mythbusters actually proved to be real.
And the drastic pressure differential pushed Meat Man into his helmet.
Tom Woodruff Jr. was the man in the Leviathan suit. He's been the main creature in dozens of things, from Pumpkinhead to the Gillman in the Monster Squad to the Alien in Alien 3. Think of him as sort of a practical effects version of Andy Serkis. The main suit was heavy, and there was no way to walk with it on. Woodruff would move and flail the suit around, then they'd cut and pick up the monster to make it look like it was moving. He said it was like wearing a parade float. The climactic end sequence was filmed in an infinity pool off the coast of Malta. Hudson couldn't swim, so he was happy the water was only 5 feet deep and could stand if he needed to. The Leviathan was never fully submerged in the water, but part of it was, which made things difficult. The creature was made of foam latex and absorbed the water like a sponge, so the longer they filmed, the heavier the suit got. To complicate matters, there were rods and pulleys that the puppeteers would use to control the monster's movement and limbs. After being around water so much, the rods had rusted and snapped, making further movement impossible, which is why at the end there's only a few quick cuts of the monster. As I said earlier, Hudson argued with the director about his death. He survived everything, only to be taken out quite lazily in the end. Cosmatos stuck to his guns and insisted the character die to surprise the audience. After a long 3 months, the production wrapped. It was released into theaters on March 17, 1989, less than 2 months after the release of its competition, Deep Star 6. Despite all the good things going for it, the film opened in second place. It only made back 15 of its $20 million budget theatrically. Critics complained that much like how The Monster was an amalgamation of the different crew members, the film felt like a combination of a bunch of other films, like Alien, The Thing, Outland, and Run Silent, Run Deep. Coincidentally, it also seemed similar to what is arguably the first survival horror game, Project Firestart, which came out that same year. The main something being that in Project Firestart, the creatures were created as a way to have workers survive the harshness of space. In Leviathan, it was the same thing, only the creatures were made to survive the pressures of the ocean. Over the years, the movie's gained a cult following, but it's often unfairly compared to The Abyss. While I do enjoy The Abyss, that's a whole other episode. Leviathan is a terrific undersea monster movie. There are some similarities between it and other more popular films, but I still feel that it stands on its own. Between the outstanding cast and the amazing creature work, you have, in my opinion, a movie that stands out among the flood of ocean films. You also have this scene that probably wouldn't go over that well today.
You made it! No one back at Trioceanic believed me, but I never gave up on you once. How do you feel?
Better. A lot better.
I realize you must have gone through hell.
Gone? Bitch, we still here.